Spilling the Beans Summer Series. I am beyond thrilled to have an awesome group of folks with us today. We are talking about security awareness training. And I think in today's world, it is so important to build a culture of security minded individuals. I think that it's really easy for us, and I'll just put myself in that category. I'm in marketing. Well, why do I need to care about security? Isn't that my IT team's job? Well, the answer is it's really not, right? It's everybody's job. And it's going to take all of us within an organization to protect that precious data that we have. And, with attacks getting more complex and more frequent, the statistics that we've heard between the Spilling the Beans, Verizon DBR, and then the Endpoint Zero Trust last month talks a lot about phishing, and they're going after your users, right? And so it's so important for us to build this strong security culture. And I am honored today. We've got three amazing individuals today. We've got our Dean Sheely, our Spilling the Beans host, who you know. And we also have Alan Lepke, one of our senior security engineers. Alan, thank you for joining us. And Sean Smith, who is the IT director at Fisher Industries. Thank you for being here, Sean. When I heard your story and what you guys do internally, I was blown away. I'm super impressed by all the things that you guys are doing there. And I think the things that you're going to touch on today are going to be really important for those that are on the call today. So thank you for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, Dean, I'm going to go ahead and let you do what you do. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Brandy. Yeah, I'll just kick it off here and then get out of the way. My teammate Alan Lepke again is presenting, and my good friend Sean Smith is here as well to give a customer or a business perspective. Two amazing communicators, but maybe even more important than that, two amazing karaoke singers. So the spirit of Spilling the Beans is, kind of what we just did there. We want to keep the conversation very organic. We never rehearse these things. It's kind of like live television. You never know what's going to happen. But why do we call it Spilling the Beans? Because we want to give you insight to, kind of the water cooler talk that we have, or those meetings, that we sometimes have in the parking lot after work, to really give you insight to what we're seeing, what we're talking about, what we see globally with the different, vendors that we interface with. So, again, I'm kicking it off. I'll probably interject a little bit with the Q&A. If you don't have time to watch this video today, like Brandy said, it's being recorded. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions during the Q&A, please send an email to marketing@highpointnetworks.com. And I promise we will not spam your email box as a result of that. That's not how we roll. Without further ado, Alan, I'll hand it over to you, buddy.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dean. I appreciate that. So security culture, you can talk about it in a bunch of different ways. We at HighPoint, we have some good data behind all of the things we're going to talk about. We have about 55,000 users that we manage for security culture or security awareness training, phishing and training. So we see a lot of stuff. We see a lot of phishing emails get reported, and we can use some of those as well. But I want to show you some of the things that we really look for when we're looking and talking about security culture. To keep on Dean's previous presentations, I have a few slides in here that talk about phishing and things like that. This is all from the Verizon data breach report. 74% of data breaches stem from social engineering techniques. So of the breaches that are out there, almost 75% of them are caused by social engineering, phishing, or a lack of security culture. So what are other things that are driving this that we can look at here? From the onset here, the average time to click on a malicious link after an email is opened is 21 seconds. So that's not very long. So opening the email, taking a look at it, then they click on it. 28 seconds after that is usually when somebody's entering their credentials because of a phishing email. And that is probably the scariest part of the phishing, is when somebody gets you to enter your credentials, because then you're pretty much owned. We all know that employees are the heart of our operations. They can be our human firewall. We need to invest and empower our employees the best that we can, so that they know how to respond to phishing emails, any social engineering attacks, anything that you can put out in front of them to make them more aware of what's going on out there. You're only going to be better for it. This here, security culture, they are the ideas, the customs, and behaviors that influence your organization's security. It's a collective mindset, practices, and the norms that shape how an organization should approach things. It encompasses the knowledge, thinking patterns, and habits of your employees and their demonstrated behaviors. I was just reading an article yesterday, actually, that stated after an event happens, up to about 45 days. So let's say we're breached by a phishing email. 45 days after breach, employees are pretty good about identifying and not clicking on things. You know, they're more aware because of that breach. You then take it to 60 days and you look at it again, people are right back into their old habits. So if they're not getting the training that they so desperately need, or if you're not trying to change your culture so that they can identify things like that, then you are really missing the boat. It's very crucial to train them. You can't just check a box and say, yes, we have security awareness training and phishing that we do. You need to have all the right pieces in place, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. These here are 7 dimensions of security culture that you really should pay attention to. The top one here are the attitudes, just the feelings and beliefs of the organization. Next, we have our behaviors, and those are our actions and activities that we do. Cognition, just the understanding, knowledge, and awareness of issues and activities. Communication, we all know communication. The more that you communicate different things going on in the organization or discussing security related topics, that'll increase people's awareness and their reporting that they do. Compliance, a lot of places need to do stuff like this for compliance. And you shouldn't just be doing it to check the box. Like I said earlier, you need to have a real plan and follow through with that. Norms, the unwritten rules of the organization. Everybody, you know, that all kind of comes back to communication. If you're not communicating on what is expected, then your culture for norms is not going to be where it needs to be. And then your responsibilities. How does the employee perceive their role? There are ways that you can rank all of these different cultures in your organization. You can also have your employees take quizzes so that you know where each employee stands and what specific training that they need. What targeted training does each and every employee need? Those are things that you need to start thinking about. All right, so when we talk about culture, we need to have a few different things here. First one is a security awareness training plan. You need to have this, you need to have it documented, you need to follow it. It needs to be point by point on what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. Next thing is you need to have buy-in from C-level. If you don't have buy-in from the top, you're just spinning your wheels. If you can't enforce certain things, I'm not saying punitive things, just the expectation of your employees that certain things will get done. If it doesn't come from the top, it's not going to matter. You need to put it in a policy. So if you don't have policy written on your security culture or security awareness training, you need to put something in place so that you know you can follow it, you can enforce it, you can make it top of mind for all of your employees. And then you have to follow through. If you have all these other things in place, but you don't do any follow through with it, again, you're spinning your wheels. You need to follow everything that you put into place. What should be part of a security awareness plan? You should be doing frequent phishing tests. That's number one, testing all of your employees, seeing how they're doing. Quarterly training to all users. You should train all of your users at least quarterly. Some other best practices that we do is if you do click on a link in your phishing test, you also get a training. It's all about continuous training. New user training. When you have new employees come on, you need to have a training that is put in place to bring them up to a certain level of understanding, so that they're not just starting with nothing. You need to try to bring them up to a level that is sufficient for your organization. And then you need to deal with risky users. So if you have risky users in your organization, we all know who they are. We can also track all of that stuff. You should have more training for those risky users. As a best practice, you should have, if they fail so many tests, they should get a training. If they fail more, they should get a longer training, continuous training. That's kind of the key. And then testing or assessments. So doing like culture surveys, quizzes on the understanding of different areas like incident reporting, things like that. You should test that stuff so that you know if you need to cover that more than usual. And then targeted training. Just if somebody needs help, assign them training. There are some other things that you can do, and I will touch on that as well once we get a little farther here, and probably when we start talking to Sean. Buy-in from the C-level. So like I was saying, you need to have the support from the top down. It starts with the CEO, goes all the way to the managers. HR should be involved to some level or aspect. Not specifically for punitive, just for recording purposes, just so that they're on board as well. They might have a training program that they're trying to do. You don't want to step on each other's toes. So you need to collaborate and communicate. It should not be completely on the IT department to run your training program. These guys have so many other things to do and worry about. If you can push that onto a manager, to make sure that the users are doing their trainings that they're supposed to be doing. If they're having issues, getting them the help that they need, which may involve having somebody from IT sit down with them and go over things so that they understand what they should be looking for. These are all things that you should do. And then policy. You need to have it written down. Have a plan, how you're going to help, and then definitely do not start off in a punitive manner. I mean, you may at some aspect in your policy get to some sort of punitive part, but you're not leading with it. It's not the important piece of your security culture. It shouldn't be. Otherwise, people are going to be afraid to do it. However, if you have risky people, you need to have a way to deal with people like that. And we'll talk more about that on how Fisher Industries does that. And I have some other examples as well. And then lastly, follow through. This is the biggest piece. I mean, you can buy all the software in the world. You can have great expectations or great intentions. But if you don't do it and you drop the ball on it, then you're gonna get hacked, you're gonna get owned. It's not gonna be good. You're gonna wish that you did something about it previously. We do have a lot of customers that come to us and say, after a breach happens, what are more things that we can do? What should we be doing? I just actually right before this, I had one of our sales guys reach out and say, customer X, they just had a ransomware event and now they're ready to get on board and do this. Well, that is a lot of times what drives things. But if you're wanting to improve security culture, you need to be thinking ahead of the game. So with that being said, I want to get into more of a conversation piece rather than just talking at you guys. I want to give you some good examples of what's going on out there right now, especially with one of our customers. So I'm going to bring Sean on here and we're going to talk a little bit about what I discussed, how it goes with Fisher Industries and what they do. Real quick, a little bit about Fisher. They have a few locations around the country here. They are by
a few more than that, but yeah, there's like 30.
Yeah.
But yeah, those general areas.
Those are your main ones on your website. They have around 600 and some users in their phishing and training program. Not every employee that they have is in their phishing and training simply because they don't have the technology. They don't have an email address. So there's no training really that can be done. I'll talk more about other training that Fisher does here in a minute. But these guys have a pretty good track record and I will show you some of that too at the end here. So Sean, do you guys have a security plan in place?
We do. We have we do have a security awareness plan, a security awareness policy. We also have other active plans. I mean, with physical security, active shooter, all those types of securities that you would find necessary for, day-to-day business, especially the security awareness plan as things are shifting, more towards the technology side, even for what we do. And I know I like to say we make big rocks into small rocks, mostly in our northern regions, but in our southern regions, we do a lot of general contracting. In the construction blue collar industry, you do get a lot of different types of users with a lot of different types of skill sets. Some range to how do I turn this computer on, to they're very, very good at using computers. So we get a very broad range of our users. So yes, we do take this security awareness plan very seriously at Fisher Industries.
As far as phishing in general, fish training, what we do, Can you tell us how often you guys actually do phishing tests?
Yes, and most of our users hate me for this. And my former boss, Carl, because he was the one that actually got this kicked off before he jettisoned down to Arizona to start another adventure for Fisher. But we do weekly phishing tests. We do weekly payroll too, but we also do weekly phishing tests. So it's almost like one and the same. And then I get blamed a lot for that. However, we will talk about the trainings and what we do. Alan gets to fess up for it because Alan has done some of the trainings for us, and he fears for his life a little bit when we get in front of all of our workers in a movie theater type of situation where they're waiting for him at the end of the room. So you're the guy that gives us these weekly phishing emails, and I'll have to be his bodyguard, so to speak, at these things. But yes, we do weekly phishing tests. Just because you get one on a Monday doesn't necessarily mean you might not get one on a Friday. And they're very, very good. Spelling really isn't much of a thing anymore with AI, with some of these that are actually generated. They think that I put these out there. So I mean, sometimes I get credit for them, but I have to fess up that I don't sit there and make emails like how am I gonna trick this guy? That would be Alan's job. So he definitely fesses up and does a great job for, you know, for lack of a better term, tricking our employees. We're not trying to trick anyone. We're just trying to, show them what to look for, spoofing domains, things like that. Just to try in the hover test to try and spot those particular emails.
Right. So most of our clients that we do phishing for, they only do monthly phishing. When I go talk, so Fisher, they also do which is kind of cool. Every year they get together, they have to have safety training, right? So OSHA stuff, truck driver recertification, hearing aid tests. I mean, they do all kinds of stuff. And what better time to get in front of your employees? So the IT guys there, they have a class that is required for a lot of people. Most people that have email addresses, where they have me come down and we do a training in front of everybody. And the one thing that I always say to those people in attendance, and we train hundreds of them. Sometimes we have 100 in one class, but they are actually our number one customer as far as click rate. By doing more phishing tests, your employees are going to get more aware of what to look for. And especially if you have something where they do click on it and then they can see what they missed on a landing page. When they do click on that, it'll show them all the red flags that they should have seen. That's even more training for them. So the more phishing you can do, I would not recommend going more than weekly. Weekly seems to be the magic bullet, so to speak. And you will see the numbers here at the end. And then trainings. So Sean, how many trainings do you guys do a year? And then you can also talk about the end of the year training too, if you want, and what we do for you. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned the end of year training. It seems might as well start with that. That is our big claim to fame. We try to make that. We try to keep it under an hour and 15 minutes. I mean, you try not to get long-winded. With my genetics, I get very long-winded. I have to shut up every now and then. But we do this. Alan mentioned we do MSHA, OSHA, all of our safety training. So why not? We have everyone there already, and it's not only good for your company, good for your culture. Cybersecurity insurance is a requirement as well, and we do a lot of contracts, Department of Defense, things like that, where we've had to harden our network and our security and our compliance and our policies. So we've had to, not just check that box, but continue to train in various different ways to be able to be able to bid on some of those actual jobs. The annual one is the most fun. It's where you get to, be face to face with all of your employees, not only the ones that have an email, but there's several that don't have an email, that use an iPad to clock in and things of that nature. So we try to get, in front of as many people that will be there as we can. Not only just to build the security culture at Fisher, but they take these lessons, they take these things. A lot of them come up afterwards, like, I really didn't know that, or actually get involved and say, hey, did you hear about this breach or this? Some people, do a lot more reading than I do. And when you have that many people in a room, it's a great resource to listen to, obviously, their side of their story. So they take those home, they share it with their family, they educate their family as well. So we're not just trying to build that security culture at work. We try to give them, a little bit of knowledge to take home to, protect their family. Those phishing emails, those spam calls, those happen not just at work. We
Yeah.
cover a variety of different topics. We try to make it different every year. It gets really hard, with the topics and the breaches, and you can
Certainly
only
does.
change it so much, and we're kind of up against the wall in terms of schedule and coming up with new material for this year, because it's right around the corner. And it's just good to educate your users, and it's very, very open. Blue collar, there's no filter sometimes when Alan and I get in front of all of these all of our employees. I wouldn't necessarily, I get all my swearing out at work, so I don't have to do it at home, and it's a lot of fun to do those particular types of trainings, and our employees do get a lot out of it. We also do quarterly trainings. Every quarter we have quarterly trainings that automatically go out to all of our people. I know there was another bullet point that Alan mentioned that wasn't in here, was targeted trainings. We do those as well. Uh, you could use targeted trainings for HIPAA if you needed. We have not went down that road yet, but we do for PCI, for credit cards, CUI, controlled unclassified information type of things, and NARA training. Some of those government terms we do use trainings for targeted trainings where we have to require those and turn in those certificates so we can, again, stay compliant with the level of compliance that we are going for.
Only the government was as safe as you.
Right. They don't even follow their own
all the
rules.
controls that you have to put in place, and yet somehow they
Yes.
get by with it sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean your trainings that you do in front of everybody. The one cool thing that I like about that is, our first year or two that we were doing it, we like to interject humor into it. That keeps the attention of people. Anytime you can have appropriate humor when you're trying to train somebody, it only increases their attention span. And then if you're giving them interesting things, or in some cases scaring the crap out of them on what's going on in the world that that they're not aware of that could happen, they're listening. And that's when they come up to you in the end. And that's when they take it home to their families. And in the end, then, when we're training 600 people, we're actually training 1,800 people plus, because they're telling so many more people about things that we do. At one point, Fisher had a couple of times when we went down, they had a family evening where they would invite family in, and we would do the same presentation pretty much, without statistics and their information, to family members, just to help train them. And they paid for that, for us to do that, for their families to be safer. All right, so we do quarterly trainings as well. Risky user trainings. Yeah, so typically with risky user trainings, I do, like, if you've clicked twice within three months, you're assigned a training. Well, with Fisher, since they're doing it weekly, that would be pretty intense. So we've kind of done a fourfold on that. So if you fail 8 within 12 months or something like that, you get a training. Then there's another level above that, like 16 or 20 or whatever. And each level, we've increased the training that they have to do. So obviously, if they're continuing to click, well, they need more training, right? And then talk about your new users. What do we do for your new users?
New users, they get a great show. So at the end of, if we do get a good one with our annual training, sometimes we will record it, but most of the time I take the slideshow and go back and kind of shrink it down a bit so that our new users, when they come on, they get the presentation that Alan and I would normally give, but it's just shorter. It's still about 50 minutes, but they do have to take and view our annual training when they do start. I mean, even if they start in new users, that'll start in October. They're going to get the new user training, even though they'll get cyber training within 2 months from now. So we require that for every new user gets to view a recording of our most recent annual cybersecurity training.
Cool. So, you've heard security plan, their phishing tests, their training, risky users, new users. Next thing, let's talk about buy-in from C-level.
Ooh.
Do you guys have buy-in from the top down?
Most certainly we do. And there was one thing on that previous slide that I did think of, and then I just forgot to mention it, is proficiency assessments. We also do those where, I know you mentioned this prior, is where we do send out surveys and tests, and we do make our employees actually give honest answers. We look at the timing, and I take it and I read. I'm not the fastest reader, but if I see somebody who goes through these surveys and it only takes 15 seconds, I know they were just clicking, and I send it to them again and say, let's do better, and please give me an honest answer on some of those proficiency exams, because Alan had mentioned that it is important to know where your employees are lacking, in what section, in what type of training would actually benefit them the most. So those proficiency assessments are actually very useful. As far as the buy-in from C-level, yes, we do have I do have management backing. It's something that technology is kind of a scary thing to people that don't necessarily know a ton about it. And to be that bridge of, technology and education to our C-level management is actually it's a good role for me and for Carl, because we can, bridge that gap and say, this is why we need to do it. This is our plan. This is what we need to tighten down, not only for training, but also network security and the infrastructure and the budget that we do spend to put these in place. So when we can show the stats that Alan will show, it does pay for itself, and it does get a lot easier to say, well, this is why we're going to pay for this. Look at how much of an improved click rate. Look at how safer we are. We don't have to go spend, thousands and thousands of dollars for a breach. We usually, I don't knock on wood here, but we haven't had to do that yet. And training your employees are the easiest thing to hack. Your network is, depending on your setup, it is very difficult to hack a network. They're going to go straight to your employees. So the more educated, the more sleuthy they are, the more they want to be a detective when these come in. The more things they look at, the more things they can spot. It's only going to help your company, and not only for the company, but also at home as well. So that the more you can show them, the better your company will be, the more secure they will be.
One of the cool things, so when Sean has High Point out has me out to do their training with them. We also get in front of their other affiliates they have. So they have other companies that they own. We go and do the training at those sites as well. The one cool thing that was really nice to be able to fall back on is one of the guys at one of these places, one of the head guys, said, "Can you please take me off your fishing and training?"
Yeah.
I'm sure that the owner of the company doesn't get this. And I just started grinning ear to ear and waiting for Sean to say something. And Sean said, "Well, guess what? The
Yeah.
owner does get it." And he takes the trainings religiously. He gets all the fishing tests, the weekly ones. He reports emails. He does it all. So no, you gotta take your fishing and training stuff. So it's being pushed from the actual top. And then the managers, having the managers involved, letting them know when their employees aren't getting stuff done. It's very helpful. HR, if you can report to them, if they reach a certain level of riskiness and say, "Hey, this person, we've talked to them multiple times," put something in their file. I mean, that is where the punitive side comes in. But if you can have your managers involved, it's so much easier. It takes it off of the IT guys as well. As not only that, but the blame game. Well, why do you guys fish us so much? Well, it's not me, man. It's coming from the top. They're approving this. They're telling us to do it. So they're not, the IT guys aren't always the bad guys in that aspect.
Not always, but sometimes I do enjoy that, villain role. And, to put it modestly, Alan, you with what I did say to that individual, he was very PG about it here, but it wasn't there may have been a few 4-letter words, you just never
Sure.
know. Yeah, there is no exempt list. It's like Alan said, it's from the top down. We do have that, it's accepted company wide, everybody gets them. No, they don't. Yeah, they do. They really do. Whether they choose to use the fish alert button or just delete it, that's up to them. But again, if there is no exempt list at all. So
Policy.
policy is just my favorite topic of everything.
You
IT
guys
related.
you have a lot of them that you have to follow.
So many.
Can you talk a little? So I'm going to lead this off by saying they have a lot of frameworks that they have to follow. So they have policies in place. They have to have policies in place, and they have to be pretty stringent. I really like what they've done with their policy here. I have other places that have just started putting policies in place. We can talk about a bunch of different policies, but I want to hear specifically what you guys do, how you make your users take their training, why you guys almost always have 100% completion rates on your training, and people actually watching the videos that they need to watch.
Right. So you mentioned, getting HR involved, and it's not always the IT's, job to push these types of things. I would love for you to actually come here and walk down the hall and say that. That would be great. Because
I will next time I'm there.
Right. It is basically IT that does that. We wear a lot of hats here at Fisher. So in terms of policy, the main policy that is our go-to, our computer use acceptable use policy, where that spells out basically everything you can do with our particular devices and what's allowed, what's not allowed. We have a ton of other policies, but for this and the security awareness plan, those two sort of work hand in hand with, you will get training. You do have 30 days to complete the training. After 30 days, And this is more or less on the follow-up slide. I don't know if you want me to cover this now, Alan, or in the next slide. It's up to you.
Go for it.
Cover it now. After 30 days, you do get notified. After 30 days, your user account gets disabled. And this actually helps with the manager's buy-in, because if your user account is disabled and you need that computer to do your work, you can't. So what use are you at this point? We haven't done a lot of, we haven't went in the punitive side, but I have heard of punitive sides where if you fail so many phishing emails, it affects, your bonus. And, as soon as they start taking money out of your pocket, we have not went that way. We haven't done anything like that currently, but it is a powerful motivator to pay attention to what you do at work. Not only, just because it affects your wallet, but after 30 days, your account gets disabled. If you haven't contacted the IT department to do this training, after 60 days, your account is deleted and I take your equipment away. Then if you need it to actually do your job, your manager then has to fill out a brand new PC request to get all of this equipment set up again and returned to this particular employee. I've only taken, as of right now, I want to say 6 to 7 machines so far, and they haven't been reissued. So it turns out if your email and your equipment actually isn't needed to do your job, well, we'll deploy them in other places, because we do not need risky users when you have an account, an Active Directory account to our network. That comes with a responsibility to keep our network safe, and we take that very, very seriously. And I get a little bit of pushback, but in terms of the enforcement of that 30/60 rule, I have full reign. And it's nice to have that C-level backing, to have that manager backing, to know this is what happens. This is also, that happens with if you miss a clicker training. So if I disable your login, it takes 15-20 minutes for the system, for things to actually sync. The clicker trainings are usually what, Alan, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just, I don't want to say laziness, but laziness for 3 minutes to have to disable an account, and it takes about upwards to a half an hour to get you back in to your system, depending where we are. We're very remote. You don't know if they have to bring it back in. Technically they shouldn't, but sometimes you just have to bring the PC back and connect it to the network to make everything all happy. For 3 minutes, it's a very big headache. And we try to stress that at the annual trainings. Like if you get one, again, there's no wall of shame anymore. We're not, and we used to do that, and it kind of got a bad rap with the whole punitive thing, is if, and some employees would actually like to see that. Okay, who failed the most phishing tests? Who's up on the naughty list? But we took that away. I don't really do that anymore, because it's not really about, punishing people for failing. It's more or less, I try to take the approach of, I want to help you. I want to educate you. I want to make you be a better employee. And I want to make you be a more educated employee, not only for the company, but for at home too, for your family. Because again, it doesn't just stop at work. Your personal emails explode with spam. You're getting spam. I guarantee you somebody's got a spam call right now. And that, with as many people as watching, I've only had 2, but it's a constant thing. It's a constant battle to stay educated, to stay sharp with these particular types of attacks. So
Yeah,
that's go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of the things that you guys have also done, I mean, Sean mentioned they had a wall of shame. That only occurred a couple times, and we replaced it with the wall of fame.
Right.
So we recognize those people that did the best, and then I think even one year you guys did like Amazon gift cards to the
Yes.
best ones.
Yep. we did
And that was in front of everybody when it was the safety training that I would go to and help. They would give away gift cards to the best people. So it makes people sit up and listen and do their stuff when you recognize them or you reward them with something that's cool. Real quick, I want to touch on a couple other companies that I know have policies. I'm not going to mention the companies, but one, we just started a company. They've been doing fishing and training for a number of years now, and they finally just got it in their policy. And they wanted to start everything kind of fresh starting September 1st. So we got everything ready so that no reports would show, or if they were already a risky user, they started over as far as reporting and training and all that stuff. And they have it in policy now where they have to do their training or else they're going to get reported to HR. Another large, very large organization, they have risky user clickers, for example. So like I mentioned, High Point does 2 of 3. They might do, like, if you've clicked 3 within 12 months, you get assigned this extra training. If you've done 4 in 12 months, a member of the security team is going to come sit down with you and go over stuff like 15, 20, 30 minutes sit down with, okay, what are you missing? What do we need to do to empower you to recognize some of these phishing emails, or why aren't you taking this training? And then finally, if they've done 5 in 12 months, then they get reported to HR and it goes in their file, and that is used for, on top of other things. If the employees aren't performing, it just helps in different ways. Those are just a couple other examples. I think we've heard Fisher is pretty serious about their policies and their program that they have. I can't say enough good about how they go about it, how they enforce it, their managers all on board. Yeah, did I miss anything, Sean? Did we miss anything on your?
No, the manager thing is I think the managers are, it's a bigger piece than even HR. It's, all the people that are responsible for the people that they do manage, if those people can't, or if those people are risky users, those people can't do their day-to-day job. It affects them as managers too, because it's like, well, now you're messing with me. It's pretty easy. It's not easy, but it's a pretty powerful tool to say, well, they can't use their computer now because they didn't take their 3-minute training. So what are they doing? What are they doing with their time and that's not for me to really, because it's not really my lane, but they'll get questioned. What's so-and-so doing? Why are we behind schedule? Well, because they didn't do their training. Well, let's get that done. It's a pretty powerful tool just to actually help, me enforce this. And my former boss, he still is a pretty large man. In terms of enforcement, it was, well, we're going to disable you in the system. And then I would always chime up physically, not physically, but just in the network, because he was a fairly large guy and fairly intimidating. So it was easy to actually, be serious about this when you had Carl up there, just as big as he is. So it was that culture that just continued, and it just helped us with, that enforcer villain role that we do get. And it's not necessarily a role I enjoy, but it's one I have to embrace at Fisher with our culture for what we have to do to be serious, about our network security, because it's very serious. Try to do your job without your network. I dare you.
Yeah.
It's very important. I mean, your computers, you do everything with them. So it's a very serious thing to keep your network safe because downtime is not a fun time.
So Sean, don't take this the wrong way, but I felt a little safer when Carl was around, when I fessed up to being the man
Yeah.
that did the phishing emails. And at one point, we were in Tempe in a movie theater, 75 people, and like, oh, you're the you're the asshole who, I mean,
Yeah.
right out in front of everybody. And it's like, yeah, that's me. And then you
Yep.
walk down the hall moving outside, and there's a group of guys just standing there staring at you. And you feel like, oh, I'm going to get jumped here.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I felt a little safer with Carl kind of right by my side. But, I still feel safe with you. You're a
Good.
pretty
I
good
mean-
bodyguard.
So I mean, sometimes, there is a size thing, but that's not always the size of the dog. So,
It's the bite. The
Yep.
bark.
yep. Because if I just come running, I get him quick. It's a movie theater. It's dark. I usually wear black for my slimming purposes. They might not see me.
Okay. Back serious here. So
Yep.
proving if you have a plan, you have buy-in, you have all of this stuff, your policy, you're serious about it. You can see April of 2020 is when Fisher started their security awareness training program, so to speak. 14.6 was their baseline, and you can see it's gone down. You see that one 7.5 kind of there in the June 2021. I believe that's when I enabled a new feature in the software, which actually uses artificial intelligence. It looks at the user's profile and it decides, hey, out of the categories that Alan chose, what is the best email in all of these emails that I can send this user to train them better? Well, we saw a bump. It affected their average, which I knew in time it would help. And you can see how it's just continually gone down. And when I took this last one here, July 2024, 0.9% click rate. That's unheard of, honestly. I have no other customer that is that low. And I think part of that is because of the weekly phishing tests that we do, the training that you do, the policies that you have in place, the buy-in. You've created a very good security culture at Fisher, with all of these parts in place, the backbone behind it. Folks, the data does not lie. It's just, they're on this line, and I guarantee they're going to beat this 1.56% yearly average, this year again. When we're doing that training in front of everybody, we also break it out by office, and we have statistics on how each area is doing. So like, for example, Tempe, Dickinson, Albuquerque, and all these other places, we show them how they did when they started. And the graph just continues to go down. And there was one place, I can't remember where it is, but the last year when we were doing training, they had cut their fish percentage rate or fish prone click rate in half every
Stinger.
year.
That was Stinger.
And I told them, I hope, but I bet you that you cannot do it again. So hopefully, I'm hoping that when we go back there this year, we can say, Alan was wrong. You guys did it again. And I think they are probably on track to doing that, to cutting it almost in half again. Yeah. Kind of my last thought I have here. Employees are learning that cyber attacks It's not all about being at work. It's also taking it home. It's part of their personal lives. Much more receptive to education and learning habits if we can also help protect them at home. So it's not just all about work. It's, my I sometimes I talk to my mom a lot. I talk to my wife. I'm like, that stuff you shouldn't do, and I tell them why. I mean, when you can preach, preach. It's only going to make everybody better. So, that those are kind of my last words on culture. I think, Brandy, I'll bring it back to you, and we'll circle around here.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Dean, I didn't know I want to give you an opportunity if you have any final thoughts, but I'm going to check the chat. So if anybody has any questions, they want to pop it in the chat, or if you want to unmute, we'll give you a little bit of time here. But Dean, I didn't know if you had any final thoughts before I wrap it up.
Yeah, can I just review some points? And as I'm doing that, please drop your comments into Brandy, and then Brandy, you interrupt me when I need to bring one of those questions forward. So probably the most important thing, during this 55 minutes of discussion that kept going through my mind is how Sean sounds exactly like Tim McGraw when he's singing the karaoke. So I hope at our next big event, the Hypocon, that we can fly Sean in, and maybe afterwards everybody can experience that. But
he's got a CD.
Oh, awesome, man. It's like, let's throw that up on YouTube and stream it out. But yeah, election season is coming up, folks, right? So in regards to social engineering, be aware of that. Alan, maybe you can chime in just 20 seconds or so, but I've come across customers that kind of do the security awareness training and so forth on their own. And they're very good about it for about 3 or 4 months, in regards to phishing campaigns and the computer-based training. But then after that, everybody gets so busy, and that technology basically becomes shelfware. So what I've seen is that, when customers engage us to help them out with that, as a smart service, with access directly to you and other people on our cyber team, it seems like it goes much better.
Yeah, it definitely does. A lot of customers just aren't aware of the capabilities that they have in their solutions. I've had so many where, we've told them we do it. I do a demo, and I'll just kind of like blown away with what can be done, how it can improve their organization. And then when I actually get on there and talk about other things, once we move them over, some of them come in and say, we still want to hold on to it and do it ourselves. But when you explain to them what all you can do and what can be done, they're like, here you go. Please do it for us, just because it takes something off their plate, and it's consistent, and that needs to be consistent.
Absolutely. And Sean, thank you for being generous enough to show us metrics. I think this security awareness training is one of those special control tools that is very quantitative in the way that it can be reported and shown to the C-level and to the board and whoever it may be. And when they see that reduction in click rate and all of the other metrics that go out of it, I think it shows to them in a very clear and stark way that risk is being reduced, and then I think they eventually see that as a return on investment. Is that kind of your experience?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And especially with the trainings, when we do show them the metrics, the graphs Ellen had mentioned, the statistics, and basically it never gets old hearing that, hey, we are performing at a level that is, number one. That's kind of what you strive for. I mean, it's nice to be able to report that and say that to your employees that you guys are doing extremely well. It's nice to, compliment and share good news and just give that type of data to them that you're doing a very good job. Everyone likes to hear, yes, you're doing a good job. It's nice to get that kind of compliment, and we do take that very seriously with some of the programs that we have. But we test and we educate, and our employees have responded to those particular tests, and it shows for our managers, it shows for our C levels that, hey, this is actually worth it, and the data, like Shakira's hips, doesn't lie.
I want to throw one more thing in there too. Even if you have such a low click rate and you have the training, that doesn't mean we're done.
No.
I mean, with Fisher, Sean and I throw ideas back and forth all the time on how can we make this even better? How can we improve that rate even more? So we're not just sitting at the 0.9% and saying, hey, yes, we're going to just do the status quo and continue there. No, we're going to try to continue to make it better and lower that number as far as we can go.
Right, and breaches suck. Like nobody wants to deal with that. It's not only a headache, it's zero fun to have to deal with, because what can be done with not only just a stolen password, they can steal your MFA token. I mean, they can steal anything. It's incredible the kind of access that someone can get to your network if it's not properly, secured and segmented. And I'm not gonna, give any details of what ours looks like. But I mean, it is definitely depending on the security processes and the infrastructure you have in place. It's serious business if there's a breach that does happen, and it's zero fun to deal with. And I apologize for the tornado warning at 11 o'clock outside the door. So.
This will be the last thing I'll say, guys. You can reply. But Sean, I love, again, the culture that you've created at Fisher, because I know if you have an end user that clicks on something, if you have an end user that, accidentally downloads something, if you have an end user that accidentally puts in a credential in a malicious website, I know that you've created the culture where that end user can come to you quickly without any fear.
Yep.
And say, hey, we're all human. Hey, I think I made a mistake here. I was a victim of something. And maybe just quickly, Sean, if you could expand on that, and then I'm done.
Sure. Yes. I mean, that happens. I mean, that happens weekly. I know we use the fish alert button. We're creatures of habit. I have one particular user. He doesn't use the fish alert button. He literally sends that email, forwards it every single time. Phishing, question mark. I mean, it's almost weekly. I respond back, yep, junk, delete, something quick. It's just the way they learn and the habits they develop to deal with these particular phishing emails. If they do click on something, if they don't recognize something, you mentioned if they do click a link or they do download something, yeah, they can and are encouraged to ask questions, to contact us. If something happens, if something doesn't happen, that's when it's scary. If something doesn't happen when you click on something, please tell us. And we try to reiterate that over and over in those annual security things. And yes, we do have that villain role that they do give us, but at the end of the day, we try to be open and we try to be receptive to, if they do have questions, yes, walk in the door. And to a fault, I mean, people walk in all the time, whether I'm on the phone or not, and I'll try to get to them. I try to help them. It's just, hang on a second. I will answer your questions. There's a lot more questions than I would like to admit. But learning is learning. And in this role that I have here, I do get to teach. I do get to be that teacher, and that is something I don't take for granted. And that's a part of the job that I do enjoy is being that teacher, because it is very, I mean, it's rewarding for me to see people grow and learn and be able to take those things home.
Excellent,
Very good.
excellent. Alan, Brandy, you know, back to you guys.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think we can wrap it up here. Honestly, Alan, Sean, thank you so much for your time today. Sean especially, not that I don't want to give you credit, Alan, but
Give him that
just for the
credit.
time that you took to share your story. Just sharing your story with others is so impactful. And again, when I first kind of had this introductory call with you, I was so impressed. I was so blown away. I think it's really easy for users to get frustrated about security protocol, but the effects, they don't understand the effects of it, right? And building this culture helps them really understand, A, that they have a part in it, B, that it could affect your job if we do get breached. You know, you may not have a job, right? Like those things are very, very serious. And I think building that culture is just something that is a must in today's world. And I think, you know, again, as IT professionals, we all kind of know that, but it is easy to kind of, you know, as a user, try to, that's not my job. This is so annoying. I don't want to take it. But it's literally 3 minutes. It's literally 5 minutes. It's not that much time that could be the difference between you clicking on something and not clicking on something. So again, thank you so much for your time. Those of you who've joined, thank you so much for sticking with us today. Thank you for being a part of this Spilling the Beans series. It was so much fun this summer. I really appreciate you, Dean, especially just kind of being the, you know, the head of all these and just sharing so many insights. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.